Hey folks, my name's Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Bootser. Black Hand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
Hey folks, my name's Rene Enriquez and you're watching Uncensored. Today we got a humdinger, folks. We're going to talk about Huero Sherm and a couple of issues that affect San Diego. I wanted to give you this little profile on Huero Sherm, also known as Raul Leon. Huero Sherm is from Shelltown. I think he's actually from Gamma. But Huero Sherm is a well-known individual. In fact, everybody knows that name in the mafia and in the street gangs, right? Huero Sherm, his claim to fame was that he started organizing mesas on the yards. Early in the 90s, himself, uh, Danny Peña, Gabriel Huerta, which is Sleepy from Wilmas, Güero Caballo, Popeye from Harpy, started organizing and had an idea to create ad hoc mesas, right? Ad hoc mesas, ad hoc means like just created specifically for the purpose of, right? I'll look up the Latin definition right now as soon as I get out because I know somebody's going to call me on it. That's the way of YouTube, right? Find the errors, fact finding, right? Let's contradict this guy. I don't get it, but okay, if that floats your boat. So he created these ad hoc committees of sureños because at the time in the 90s, when I was in the Bay, everybody was slammed, but they had indeterminate sentences, right? That means you were never getting out of the shoe. So no Mexican Mafia members were allowed to walk the main line. Hence, very little control of general population yards. What Raul Leon did was crafted a system by which sureños can control general population yards on behalf of the Mexican Mafia. It would be from 3 to 5 individuals, typically camaradas or sureños, that would represent certain Mexican Mafia members. And they would create what is known as a mesa, a committee. Although they were not inducted members, these individuals would speak on behalf of the organization. In other words, they taxed everything on that yard. They called all the shots on the yard. And they would do so by corresponding with Mexican Mafia members. Huero Sherm was prolific at corresponding to general population yards. I never did. I never wrote to anybody because I knew it was a quagmire. Not just politically, but evidentiary, evidentiary collection. I mean, that's your written word. It's a spontaneous admission being written in a letter to a mainline about taking care of business, right? I never did it. I was just totally opposed to it. But Sherm wasn't. In fact, Sherm was pretty boisterous. He was loud. And I remember when I drove up to Pelican Bay in 1993, myself and Little Mo Ruiz, Mo from White Fence, were put in D3. We were cellies together. Our first yard, Sherm was out there. He was in the pod adjacent to us. He was in a pod with Popo from White Fence. That's Richard Ochoa. And we conversed through the door, and dude is just loud. He's loud. He's boisterous. He's kind of like, he reminded me of me, right? That's how I was. That's how I used to be. You know, I wanted that attention, even if it was negative attention. That's what my personality was, and I think that was driven by low self-esteem. Right? You validate yourself through the negative attention, and Sherm was no different. Right? In fact, while he was there, he created this system for the mesa. He wrote to thousands of individuals, and during that process, a lot of people got hurt. Sherm would get a letter from somebody and tell them, "Yeah, you're in charge of the yard." while other members, unbeknownst to them, were saying the same thing to the people they were writing to. It became a cluster, you know what, on all those yards. A lot of camaradas fell by the wayside because of Sherm's letters. And Sherm would often take the word of individuals that he didn't know, had never known, and would never meet, and have people eliminated. People were actually eliminated behind the stuff he was doing. And nobody really knew the breadth and the width of it, right? Until years later when there was an investigation. But Sherm went on to participate in a number of interviews. In fact, this is one image from MSNBC. This is a made Mexican Mafia member, Raul Leon, interviewing with MSNBC. He takes off his shirt. He shows his mafia tattoos. This is national. This is world news. MSNBC lockup raw. And Huero Sherm's out here interviewing. I remember specifically he was walking out to the yard with his shirt off in these long john undies, and he thought he was cool, like he was strutting. And I just looked at it and said, "This guy is a buffoon. This guy is a buffoon. He's drawing national attention to himself, and he wanted that. He thrived on it, right?" I remember on a number of occasions they would escort us out to visit or law library or dental or medical. You had to walk down the deep facility corridor. And every time I passed by his block, it reeked of wine, and you could hear Huero Sherm's voice yelling. It didn't matter what time of day it was, you'd hear Huero Sherm yelling to camaradas across other pods. And what he would do in his entire block, right? He would load it up with San Diego guys. He'd move everybody from any facility over there if they were from San Diego. Now, he was a set tripper for real. It was all about his homeboys. And they loved him. I mean, he took care of his homeboys. You got to give him that. He took care of his homeboys. And the dudes from San Diego loved Sherm. But he, like I said, he wanted negative attention. He always sought it out, even through the cops. In his cell, he had signs up that and drawings up, Mexican Mafia drawings, that just drew attention to who he was. He wanted everybody in the block to know who he was. He wanted everybody in the facility to know who he was. And he got that attention. He did. Here's another interview that he did for another documentary. I just grabbed the stills. I'm not going to run the video. I don't want to get copyright stricken. And I'm just not going to do that, right? I'm not going to use other people's work. But these are grabs, images from those videos. You've all seen them. They've been played over and over and over. And Huero Sherm is talking, right? He avoids the mafia stuff completely, so I don't want to talk about that. He does so. But the whole point is, and I pose this question to the viewers, if that was a regular Sureño sitting down to discuss prison politics with the world media, right? What would happen to the camarada? What would happen to you if you did that? If you're an active guy and you're seeing this, what would happen to you? Yet Sherm did it repeatedly with impunity. I mean, he thought he got down with his bad, nasty self. And I just kept scratching my head saying, like, you freaking buffoon. I had got and received a lot of coverage as an active Mexican Mafia member. A lot of coverage. 60 Minutes, a bunch of stuff, right? And I'll admit, it boosted my ego, right? But I never interviewed with them. I knew better than that, you know. I was an active mobster. I was asked for interviews, and I politely declined. Like, no, I can't talk to you. I'm an active mobster, you know. I wouldn't say that to them, but I knew as an active mobster you couldn't. But Sherm did it with impunity. And there have been dudes that have been washed up for doing these interviews. That's the hypocrisy of the Mexican Mafia. Do as I say, not as I do, right? Here's an image of Sherm in Folsom. He used to send this to everybody, right? Because we couldn't have pictures in Pelican Bay Shoe. You couldn't take a picture. So any old pictures you had, you just make copies and distribute them, right? This was a postcard picture that they used to do for us in Old Folsom. You could pay one of the guys an R&R, and he'd get your ID picture and put it on the Folsom postcard, and he'd make some pictures for you, black and whites. It was a hustle they had there, right? But Sherm distributed this everywhere. Like there were multiple prisons that had letters and pictures of Sherm everywhere. And like I said, he was prolific at doing this. So prolific that he got this woman here, Margaret Farrell, who was a middle school teacher in Los Angeles. They used to call her La Profesora, right? And she would act as a secretary. She would get letters from all over the state, all over California. Everybody wrote to her, and she would in turn write messages back. Right? She would take those letters, put them in a different envelope, and mail them off. Sherm would send hundreds of letters. In fact, Special Agent Devin Hawks, who was an SSU agent at the time, he was actually an IGI. And later became an SSU agent. SSU is a Special Services Unit, which is a specialized group of agents who are dual credentialed, meaning they work for FBI, DEA, ATF, the FAT team. They work for a variety of different agencies, but they are special agents for the Department of Corrections. There's only about 40 of them in the United States. And they have gubernatorial oversight appointed directly by the Secretary of Corrections. Devin Hawks, they used to call him the computer, right? This guy was encyclopedic in his knowledge. In fact, you could ask him about what's this guy's date of birth, and boom, he would pop it off the top of his head. He would say, yeah, he has a birthmark on his left forearm. He was born at midnight on the 23rd of January in the back of a car. And he knew it. And it shocked me that this guy knew this much information. But he took an interest in Sherm. And he was following Margaret Farrell because Huero Sherm, like I said, was prolific. In fact, he had wrote so many letters, and I had received a couple from him, and they were blatant. Hey, the dude's in your pod. He owes $600. Can you tell him to send it to so and so? In the letter to me, right? And I would not respond. In fact, I told him in the law library, please don't write me, bro. Please don't write me any of those letters. But this guy was a buffoon. He would still send letters to everybody. And he sent me another letter. Same subject matter. And it wasn't that tame in the majority of the times that Huero Sherm wrote letters. It was like, whack this fool. Jipe. He would use this phrase, Jipe. Xipe. That's the flayed skin deity of the Aztecs, right? You'd see him depicted sometimes with wearing the flayed skin of an enemy, right? And it means to flay him, right? Jipe would mean to flay him, and he would use this phrase over and over in his letters. And Devin Hawks was astute in Mexican mythology. He spoke Spanish fluently. The dude's extremely intelligent. He was a Latter-day Saint, very quiet, humble man, soft-spoken, not imposing. The complete polar opposite of Sherm. But Devin Hawks began this investigation of Margaret Farrell. In fact, on one day, they shut down Program in the Shoe, and they served out, I believe, 615 CDCR 115 reports, right? Now they're called RVRs, Rules Violation Report. It still has a designation CDC 115, right? And that's you broke a rule. But they hit everybody that Sherm was corresponding with as part of a network of Mexican Mafia conspiracy and communication violating unauthorized communication, circumventing institutional rules, and jeopardizing the safety and security of the institution. I got called out to the front. They pop your door, they call you out to the front, they serve you a 115, and you sign for an IE and all that stuff, right? IE is an investigative employee. You have some due process in this disciplinary system that they've set up, and immediately they serve you a copy within 30 days of the rules violation report. They assign you an investigative employee who is supposed to represent you on your behalf or gather exculpatory evidence for you to present at the disciplinary hearing. So 600 inmates got hit with these write-ups, all because this dude, Sherm, had diarrhea of the mouth. This was real diarrhea of the mouth, worse than Fox, worse than Tonito. He would write it down because we didn't have phones at the time, but he would write it down, right? And used Margaret Farrell, who was a school teacher, to do her bidding, right? In fact, they have surveillance video of Margaret Farrell uh, interacting with gang members on behalf of Huero Sherm, little 18th Street gang members. That's where she used to teach down in that area. So it culminates. There's an investigation. Everybody's hit with 115. The postmaster general picks it up because nobody wanted the case at the time. Nobody wanted the case. Devin Hawks had presented it to a local district attorney and I believe a United States attorney, and everybody rejected the case. They said, "Oh, this guy's doing life. It's not feasible to prosecute him, and everybody that you gave write-ups to is doing life. So they just didn't see the viability in it, right? But the postmaster general did, and they convicted Margaret Farrell. I think she got house arrest and some minimal uh, probation sentence. But his objective was to disrupt Huero Sherm's correspondence, and he did. He shut it down. Sherm would send out stuff like this. Let me show you. This is one that he used to send out. He'd always insert his picture right here in the corner right here, right? He'd have some kind of image of himself. But the damning thing was this. It was this symbol right here. It's this symbol. This symbol right here. That's a black hand, and that's validation. That's validation um, by the CDCR. They could use that as association, admission of membership. In fact, that's an admission of Mexican Mafia membership per 3378 of the California Penal Code. 3378 Administrative Code. I believe that's what it is. They will use this to validate Huero Sherm. Check out his cool little Cantinflas mustache right there, right? And I enlarged this section here. Here's another one that he would send out. This is, you can see a depiction of Quetzal, Coatlique. This is the mother of Huitzilopochtli, the statue in the back. And I thought about these hands, but that's depicted in all the other depictions of Coatlique. So I thought the hand, right, that's a validated. But, I mean, you have to use rationality here. You have to use rationality. So I looked for all kinds of indicia. I counted the feathers. I said, well, maybe there's 13 feathers. So you turn the drawing upside down and you look at it. So there's something hidden in here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And then I saw it right here in the sash. See this little symbol right there? It's 3 dots and 2 bars. That's actually called Mactlactomei. Some people call it Campol, but it's not Campol. It's actually the Mayan numeric system, right? Each dot represents 1, and each bar represents 5 for a collective of 13. And what is the number 13? To the organization, it's the 13th letter in the English alphabet. That's M. And how do you pronounce M in Spanish? M. So again, it's indicia, right? Here's this little thing. Check out this depiction of Sherm. He always puts his picture in these, and he'd send them out to hundreds of individuals on multiple yards in the state of California. And that was kind of like their driver's license. That's what they used to call them, driver's licenses. Hey, I'm riding to Sherm, and he gave me the yard, or he let me be on the mesa, and that was kind of like their passport on the prison yards. But he would always include this. But check out his cool mustache right here. I didn't see this till years later, that he was so ashamed of his little catfish Cantinflas mustache that he would pencil it in right here. A fake mustache. That's no better than freaking Lyle Menendez wearing a freaking fake hairpiece in LA County Jail. Because he couldn't grow a mustache. He really couldn't grow a mustache. Sherm had this weird looking catfish thing like Cantinflas. So in all his drawings that he would send out, or photos, actual photos, he would take a pen filler and darken in his mustache. And it wasn't until years later that I blew up the pictures because it looked kind of funny, right? And I saw this and I thought it was hilarious that nobody ever caught this, right? That he would fill in his mustache, which is kind of vain if you ask me, right? Either rock it or don't. That's how his natural mustache looks. It's a weird looking mustache, right? So I get it. He didn't want to be seen with this Cantinflas catfish thing going on, but that's what it was, right? That's what it was. And he wasn't trying to show that in his pictures, but he would send out drawings like that to everybody, everywhere that were just incriminating. If the person wasn't affiliated when before they received the correspondence, they were snatched up and put in the hole every time he corresponded with somebody. Look at this right here. This is another drawing. San's mustache. This is San's mustache. This is Aztec mythology, some kind of stylized drawing. But in this Mexican eagle here, look, I've highlighted this red circle. It's an M. That's an admission of association, affiliation, or membership, right? With a Mexican Mafia member in the corner and an M in the drawing, those are validation points. They validate people for that. People go to the hole for that. This was what at a time when they had indeterminate shoot terms. So this is the kind of stuff he would do. Like without regard to anybody's, paroling or they're going to catch a case or any discretion, he would write blatantly. There was little or no attempt to speak covertly or secretly in his kites or his messages. Here's another one. Like I really looked for in here, and I didn't find any indicia of Mexican Mafia affiliation or association other than Aztec mythology. This is an eagle warrior, and that's and his name was Dedos, Dedos, like fingers. That's fingers. His name was Fingers, and he came over there like total high power, like Huero Sherm this, Huero Sherm that, and we weren't really trying to hear that. We were cool with Huero Sherm. We didn't have beef with him, uh, but didn't like his style at all. Like he was so eager over the top, he wanted to get somewhere, and we knew that this guy's going to be a crash test dummy. We knew that. In fact, he left our block. He started taking Sudafed, a lot of Sudafed, and he would go on these kind of trips, right? And he ended up leaving. Membership because, in fact, his his uh his sponsorship was questioned immediately, right? So a lot of guys have been put up, right? That does not make them carnales. It just does not. It's I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way, right? The entire organization has to agree upon it. And just because one person says I'm sponsoring you, or three guys say you're in, that doesn't mean you're in until the entire organization embraces you. And he never was embraced by the organization. So he was in the process, but he flipped before he could even get made. Uh, but that was his boy. That was Sherm's boy, and good dude. Nothing bad to say about the guy. He's a good dude. And he's living his life somewhere in Podunk, USA, some small town somewhere. And God bless him. I wish him and his wife well. And then Sherm would put up signs like this in his cell. Like this is who he wanted you to understand he was. So for the cops to see, for the inmates to see, for the medical staff to see, for everybody to see. He had signs like this up, mafia signs all over his cell. I remember I went to his cell. I used to go to his cell. They used to take me over there, and we were able to pass drugs through the bars. When me and Jocko hit, we would take uh, product and distribute it, and the cops would actually take us out of our block and take us to the blocks and distribute it, right? And I remember walking up to his cell front, and he just had all kinds of signs. I remember seeing this very drawing in his cell in Pelican Bay State Prison shoe, and I was like, Bro, that's a little out there, you know? You want everybody to know that, right? And he did. He wanted the world to know who he was. In fact, he got so bold as to do interviews with the SSU. This is during a period where I was debriefing a couple years after, and I suggested to Robert Marquez that he place a pinhole camera in the BPH room. The BPH room, this is where all the parole hearings happen, right? It's adjacent to the visiting room in the SHU. And Marquez, Special Agent Robert Marquez, will pull these guys out of their cells, and lo and behold, these made Mexican Mafia members would talk to Robert Marquez, talk about mob business. I just showed you one on Bobble from Florencia, talking mob business. I mean, real mob business, right? And what would happen to a camarada if they did that? If they participated in that communication like Bobble did, and they went in there and they had a conversation with special agents that investigate the Mexican Mafia, what would happen to a camarada if he did that? What do you think would happen, right? Yeah, that's what would happen. Then why is Bobble exempt? And here's the big question: why is Sherm exempt? Because here he is participating in an interview with a special agent from the SSU. Let's listen to the subject matter.
Everyone wants to make their bones.
Okay, but let me ask you this, Ronald, and let's call it what it is. Those dudes out there on them lines are operating up under messes.
Yeah.
Okay? We've seen the kites that have come out of here. We've intercepted some that say, hey, no more.
Wait, stop the freaking presses. The SSU says people are out there operating under mesas, and Sherm says, yeah, he's acknowledging the mesas, the organization that the infrastructure that the organization established to do the organization's bidding. He just acknowledged that right there. I mean, I must be blind. Maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. Maybe I'm biased. You're not supposed to do that. You're not even supposed to acknowledge the existence of the organization. That's one of the rules.
Individual llaveros, no more shot callers. It's the mesa system. And these dudes are in contact with some brother.
Sherm just told them it's the Mesa system. He's telling law enforcement about the Mesa system. I don't know if you guys heard that right. He's telling law enforcement about the Mesa system. This is a made Mexican Mafia member, the god of San Diego, in here with the SSU telling law enforcement about the Mesa.
Right? Well, if that's the case, why do we need to physically put you there when they're already operating up under the mesa, which is in somebody on those mesas are either operating up under one brother or multiple brothers? Why do we need to physically put these older dudes out there to control these dudes when just a simple, hey, the cops are off limits?
Who says the cops are off limits?
Are they not? Shouldn't they be? That's what I'm saying.
I ain't said the cops are off limits. Cops get crazy, them get stabbed. I told you that last time we talked.
I know,
But see, this is the thing.
Did you get that? I told you that the last time we talked. This isn't an isolated incident. Robert Marquez told me he pulled these guys out regularly, and he just acknowledged that he had previous conversations with the SSU. And he's right here saying, oh, cops mess around, they're going to get stabbed, right? You're not supposed to acknowledge anything like that. I mean, Robert Marquez is saying, like, why should we let you guys from the Mexican Mafia out to control these guys if cops aren't off limits, right? And then Sherm says, cops aren't off limits.
See, are you different from him? Yes, you're your own man, right? You're your own man. Everybody in here is different. Because you say, oh, well, the brother, he's in touch with his brother. That brother might sit back and say, fuck all of you. And whatever brother tells me that I can't stab a cop, fuck them too. Why it gotta be that, oh yeah, well, these guys go back and we're all the same? We're not all the same. You know, everybody got their own mind in here.
He's saying that not all carnales are the same. He's acknowledging membership. He's saying all brothers are not the same. And if a brother tells me this, he'll say, F you. If you tell me not to hit a cop, F you, right? This is straight up mob speak right here. He's talking about the organization and potential green light on cops. This is crazy, right? And this has been around for years. I've had this videotape for years. I saw it up briefly, maybe 15 years ago, and then somebody took it down. But it's out there, right? It's out there. I've had this video, and I've been planning to do this expose on Huero Sherm for a long time, right? Particularly now, because I'm going to add some exclusive news at the end about members of the San Diego Mafia, right? But I'm going to make you wait for it. I'm not going to tell you right now. So this has been around for a while. Let's listen to the rest of it.
And if brothers got fucking understanding, say fuck it, we're mad, we're pissed off, they just fucked over, hit them again.
So
why not?
Okay, but to use your argument then, we could potentially put a brother out there that could have the mentality, hey, screw these cops, we're going to stab them.
If you put the right brother out there, it can happen.
You know what I mean?
If you put the right brother out there, you're going to have a motherfucker ass, fuck it.
Yeah, this video is extensive. I got a clip of it, right? I'm trying to get the rest of it so you guys can see exactly what happens, right? Same thing with the Bible video. I'm scrounging that up as we speak, and I will put it out there. If you know, I'm going to put it out there if I get it, right? But this is a Mexican Mafia member talking to special agents about Mexican Mafia business. This isn't an altered video. This isn't AI. This is Raul Leon Sherm from San Diego sitting in an office by himself with multiple agents from the SSU talking about my business. Now, let me pose that question again. If you were a Sureño today and you went into an office with the SSU or the FBI or the ATF and you had this conversation and it came out later, what do you think would happen? Yeah, that would happen to you. No doubt about it. But here again is the hypocrisy of the organization. In fact, he brought himself to the attention of the United States government so blatantly that they indicted him in a investigation called Operation in the Hat. This is a information released from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Why do I know about this? I testified in the trial. This is the first federal trial I ever testified in 2007 in the Southern District of California. The FBI came and picked me up, drove me down to Chula Vista. I stayed at Chula Vista PD for a couple months in preparation for the trial, and I testified. It was Huero Sherm, Gato Marquez, Lalo, a couple other guys, right? But Huero Sherm pled out. He pled out to a life sentence. In fact, this is the sentencing release that they did. I'll give you a brief clip on this. I don't like reading articles, but I'll do this real quick. San Diego, California, United States Attorney Karen P. Hewitt announced today that United States District Judge Dana M. Sabra sentenced Raul Leon to serve life in prison without the possibility of parole. Defendant Leon was sentenced based upon his October 3rd, 2007 guilty plea to participating in racketeering, influence, and corrupt organization RICO conspiracy involving the Mexican Mafia, a.k.a. La M. And it goes on and on and on. You guys can freeze the video and read the entirety of the document. I don't see the point in that. I'm not one of those content creators that does that. I don't like doing it, right? When it necessitates that, we will do it. But Sherm got sentenced to the feds. Took him out of Pelican Bay State Prison. I think he thought. I don't know if that makes grammatical sense, but I think he believed that somehow it was going to improve his state of living, right? It was going to improve the quality of life for him. He was sorely mistaken. They sent him over to Colorado ADX, right? And look at that's him in a visiting room. And in fact, he had such a reputation for being so violent, they would make him wear a reactor belt. That's the electronic belt that's depicted here that would administer an incapacitating shock if he got out of line, right? And that's him right there in a visiting room. He looks kind of like Uncle Fester, huh? He looks like Powder from that movie Powder. He does. He really does. And this is one of the pictures that was infamous, right? When Rachel Ortiz, the woman depicted here, who is the lover of Gato Martinez, right? was from Barrio Station. She had a community activism, prisoner advocacy group in San Diego. A well-known woman who was hooked up with a mobster. In fact, she later hooked up with this individual here, Silent George. That's Silent George Ruiz, the Angel Valencia. That's his uncle. That's Boo Boo from San Diego. That's Sherm here, and that's Carlos Diaz from San Diego. She pulled out these four individuals in Pelican Bay shoe, and they let her come in to visit them and take photos. Unheard of, unprecedented. It pissed off a lot of COs, pissed off the administration that it was allowed to occur. But it happened to Augie Lopez. Augie Lopez was what they called then as a program administrator, kind of like an associate warden. And he let it occur. And again, check out this right here. The fake mustache. The fake mustache. But here's where the breaking news is at, folks. We've given you the 411 on Huero Sherm. We've told it like it is. Huero Sherm's up there in Pelican, AdMax. In AdMax under SAMs. The United States government placed SAMs on him, which are called Special Administrative Measures, where Sherm is being housed with terrorists and people of such high security that it's a special place in U.S. penitentiary system where he's completely isolated. His mail's reviewed. He can only receive communications approved to the United States Attorney's Office and Department of Justice. In fact, he's cut off completely. And there's a lot of speculation as to whether Sherm is on disregard status. I know that he has been minimized by the brothers, and he no longer has the great amount of communication or influence within the gangs. It remains to be seen if he'll survive this once he's released, if he's ever released from SAMS and AdMax and placed with other cardenales. I know they viewed that, what he did, as like sacrilegious, like that's a capital offense. He's still going to face that music. He's going to face that music. Maybe he'll survive. Maybe he won't. My money is that he won't survive it. And that's where he's at. All that attention seeking got him the attention of the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice effectuated a little known procedure called SAMS, right? Where they go to the court and they tell the judge, we need to place this guy under the prison. We need to bury this guy so far in administrative segregation that nobody can communicate with him. Kind of like how they did Ricky Silverstein. Ricky Silverstein was an Aryan Brotherhood member that they did this to. They could put in complete isolation before SAMS even existed, right? And he's still there today. You know, Ricky Silverstein probably will never, ever see the light of day in a general population yard. And I would say that Sherm may be in that same position based on his braggadocio, his arrogance, his willingness to put it all out there in public, in TV and everywhere else. He's a loose cannon, and the Bureau of Prisons, Federal Bureau of Prisons, knows that. So he may spend the rest of his life in SAMS and AdMax. But the breaking news is this. That's a purple with the red circle, or the person with the red circle around his face. His name is Carlos Diaz. He's a San Diego Mexican Mafia member. Been a Mexican Mafia member for decades and decades and decades. I know him personally. Funny story. You never wanted to go into a visiting booth in Pelican Bay after him. Ever, ever. Use your imagination. Why? You just never would. And if you did, you didn't want to touch anything. Let's just leave it at that. Use your imagination, right? He would go in there with his girl, and he would handle his business, and then you just didn't want to go in there after him. Let's just leave it at that. But everybody said, oh, man, you don't want to go in that booth after him, man. Because he would always do that. True story. Well, he was housed at CSP Lancaster, right? Lancaster State Prison, right? And Los Angeles County. I think it's in the edge of the Mojave Desert in Lancaster, California. Like the edge of Los Angeles County. I was housed there in SMY when I first went to SMY. But just a few days ago, Carlos, who they call Robot, that was his nickname, Robot, right? was stabbed multiple times by 3 individuals who ran into his cell and stabbed him up. And he's currently in ICU. He's going to survive. But that marks another departure from mafia rules. Like camaradas are stabbing carnales now. When carnales can't get to another carnales, send camaradas. And this was no mistake. 3 people don't. If you're on a yard with a Mexican Mafia member, you know who he is. You know exactly who he is. He's a Mexican Mafia member, and that's just it. And for 3 guys to run in the cell and stab a Mexican Mafia member up, you know it came from the mob. So Carlos is done. He is done. He will not survive this. He will not continue on in Mexican Mafia politics. In fact, this is him depicted here. His name is Diaz Carlos. His B number is B44355. That's a rare number, a B number. He has a Baker number or a Bravo number. And this was taken in Pelican Bay in 2025. Excuse me, July 25th, 2022. It's when they pulled out an Operation Pelican. I have a video on it. I think I'll run it for you. It shows you when they pull out every validated gang member, and they take these ID pictures of them to identify individuals. Right? It's a huge operation that they brought in staff from all over the state to effectuate this raid in Pelican Bay. But this is Carlos Diaz here. He's, like I said, in intensive care unit. He was stabbed by 3 individuals multiple times. He survived that attempted elimination. And this is him years ago when he was a young man. This is when he was already a Mexican Mafia member. In fact, this is in the back, Perico from the hotel meetings, the guy that's always voicing opposition, that whiny guy talking to Shy, opposing Pelon's induction, right? This is the guy right here. This is Artie from Cobras. This is Perico from Flats. Artie from Cobras. This is Carlos Diaz. I don't know who this individual is here. This is Silent George from San Diego. This is Spider Arriaga. He was eliminated quite a few years back. This is Benjamin Topo Peters, my crimey. And this is Big Hoss from Clanton, from Clanton, 14, right? These are all carnales. I don't know about this guy. He's got to be a carnal, though, because these are all carnales here, but I don't know who he is, and I can't identify him. Here's the hink in it, though. Here's the hink in all this, that Sal has a brother, Carlos has a brother named Sal Colavella. They just call him Sal, right? But he's a made Mexican Mafia member. And you know that he's going to face some political fire in this thing because they whacked his brother. They whacked his brother, and there's going to be some political blowback. There's no getting around that. Either he's going to have some political blowback, or he's going to enforce some stuff on the people who did that to his brother. I think right now he's reeling. Sal's reeling because he wasn't the powerhouse among the duo of brothers, right? It was Sal Colavella and Carlos Diaz, blood brothers, and Sal wasn't the source of power in the organization. He got in after Carlos, so he's going to face some difficulties. That's Sal depicted here. He's from Logan, like I said, made Mexican Mafia member. He's going to face some blowback. He might be in doubt right now. In his mind, like, hey, they just hit my brother. Are they going to hit me? Why did they hit my brother? There's a lot of unanswered questions in his mind. And I'm sure he's facing some real strife right now. And this is, again, another picture of the 4 San Diego Mafia members who were at Pelican Bay State Prison when Rachel Ortiz came to visit them. Apologize for the grainy picture. It's the best I could get. But they're kind of rare pictures. I know they published them in Barrio Station's publication in the past, but that's the latest. Carlos Diaz from San Diego was stabbed multiple times by 3 known Mexican Mafia camaradas, not members, and his future in the organization is in serious peril. All right, folks, that'll do it. I hope you enjoyed this exclusive breaking news on Carlos from San Diego. With that said, folks, please leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, As always, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Peace out.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Boots.